The French Revolution was the culmination of the growing tension and division between the social classes of France, whom were divided into three estates. The first estate was the clergy, who were the religious leaders of France. The second estate, the nobility, was comprised of the descendants of the nobles from medieval times. The third estate included everyone else. This third estate was made up mostly of peasants, uneducated farmers who produced all of the food France lived off of while having to pay the extreme taxes imposed on them by the king. The middle-class tradesmen that made up the bourgeoisie were also represented in the third estate, and their educated nature exposed to them just how much the upper classes were taking advantage of them. Although the third estate made up 98% of the population, each estate had the same amount of votes at meetings of the Estates General, an assembly created to address the growing financial problems of France at the time. This vote distribution allowed the first and second estates to block every proposal the third estate put forth and to pass any laws they desired. Eventually, the third estate became agitated by this and declared themselves to be the new ruling body of France, the National Assembly, issuing the Tennis Court Oath, which stated, "We swear never to separate ourselves from the National Assembly, and to reassemble wherever circumstances require, until the constitution of the realm is drawn upon and fixed upon solid foundations." Though King Louis XVI publicly supported the National Assembly, he began to bring members of his army into Paris. The Assembly felt threatened by this and decided to strike first by seizing the arms stored at the Bastille prison. This was the beginning of the French Revolution, a revolution that caused the government of France to change hands from an all-powerful king to a murderous tyrant to an all-powerful dictator, accomplishing almost nothing for the government of France in the short term. Despite this, the French Revolution spread the ideas of freedom, humanism, and egalitarianism to a degree unprecedented in history and was undoubtedly one of the biggest turning points in history.
Before the Revolution, the clergy held an extreme power over the French people. They collected a large portion of the Third Estate's earnings through tithes, religious taxes, leaving the people in further poverty. Although the clergy was 1% of France's population, it held roughly 10% of the total land area and a third of the government's voting power. The bourgeoisie recognized the need for this change and made reducing the church's power a major focus of the revolution. These ideas held their roots in the Enlightenment and Protestant Reformation, which had previously challenged the wealth of power held by the church. The revolution inspired change in the privilege of the church. The French government revoked land from the clergy in order to sell to ease their extreme debt, and took further control over the establishment by controlling what they were allowed to preach about, showing a change from the two structures being equals to the government asserting themselves in power. This was the beginning of a historical trend towards secularism, where in most governments religious institutions were afforded less and less power, leading to modern times, where France is one of the most secular nations in a world where the separation of church and state is valued.
Prior to the Revolution, the educated bourgeoisie were included with the uneducated peasants under the label of the Third Estate, and they were beginning to resent this. Though they had a higher potential than their peers due to their education, the First and Second Estate were beating them down to the lowest of ranks. A quote by the economist Jean-Marie Roland, present during the Revolution, detailed the abuse the bourgeoisie was subject to while they were still a part of the Third Estate. "I have frequently seen manufacturers visited by a band of satellites who put all in confusion in their establishments, spread terror in their families, cut the stuffs from the frames, tore off the work from the looms, and carried away them as proofs of infringement. The manufacturers were summoned, tried, and condemned, their goods confiscated, copies of their judgment of confiscation posted up in every public place, fortune, reputation, credit, all was lost and destroyed. The lack of class mobility in France at the time, as well as the growing unrest amongst the oppressed, meant that the bourgeoisie had to rebel to expand, and their emergence was one of the major causes of the revolution. Their involvement in the revolution was rewarded heavily, as they could finally merge into a class of their own, becoming the middle class and being much more prosperous as a result. The bourgeoisie continued to grow so large as a class that they became, in Marxist ideology, the very thing they rebelled against, controlling most of the wealth, as well as the means of production in society. Because of the French Revolution, the middle class has expanded radically, and as such it is one of the largest classes in the modern era.
The French Revolution is the birthplace of nationalism as it is known today. Before the Revolution, France was divided against itself by class differences. This prevented any feeling of brotherhood from developing among the French. Once the Revolution came and destroyed most of the factors that separated the people, they were finally able to grow together and develop a great feeling of nationalism. This was further increased by Napoleon once he seized power. Napoleon instituted the first national draft, making the French military one of the greatest around, and finally giving the French people something to hold great pride in. The military also helped encourage nationalism by attempting to conquer most of Europe. Their eventual failure and the necessary reappropriations of European borders caused this feeling of nationalism to spread throughout the region, as everyone claimed more land than they truly deserved. Nationalism had also helped to establish countries such as Italy, which were once divided by regional differences, but now had reasons to unify and strengthen themselves as one.
The French Revolution was a major crossroads in the realm of government structure. Prior to the Revolution, France, as well as most other nation-states, was a monarchy led by a single all-powerful ruler who was believed to be appointed by God. The educated members of the Third Estate were not pleased with this and began to clamor for change. The ideals of humanism that characterized the time challenged religious superstition and put forth the will of the common people as of greater importance. This resulted in the creation of the National Assembly during the beginning of the Revolution, as well as the formation of France's Parliament after the Second Revolution. The Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, put forth by the National Assembly, stated, "Law is an expression of the general will. Every citizen has a right to participate personally or through his representative in its foundation." The desire for representation by oppressed members of the society sent a shock wave through Western countries, and after a brief stagnation caused by the Congress of Vienna, resulted in widespread adoptions of republics.
The news of the outcome of the French Revolution traveled far and wide, leading to the inspiration of an oppressed and angry class in the Caribbean, the slaves of Haiti. Haiti, a French colony, was inspired on two fronts by the French Revolution. The triumph of the Third Estate showed the Haitian slaves that even the lowest class can rebel if they have the numbers and the determination to take over. They were also encouraged by the weakness in the French government this defeat showed, so they tried their luck at a rebellion of their own. And much to the despair of France, it was a success. This revolution not only rid the colony of French influence, it also destroyed Haiti's rigid class structure and resulted in the end of slavery there. The leader of the Haitian Revolution, Toussaint Louverture, recognized the change he inspired, even after he was eventually defeated, stating, "In overthrowing me, you have done no more than cut down the trunk of the tree of the Black Liberty in Saint-Domingue. It will spring back from the roots, for they are numerous and deep." This was the first revolution in Latin America that was a catalyst for the many that followed, causing a domino effect of inspiration and the widespread acquisition of hope in the region.
As a whole, the French Revolution was the largest contributor to the political and social climate of the world today, spreading a wide variety of ideas which can all be boiled down to one word: freedom. The revolution caused the pollination of ideas of liberty to be spread worldwide, having ramifications that are still felt today. Across the globe, lower classes created legends of the Third Estate's triumph and began to assert themselves against upper-class oppressors. Former Chinese leader Zhou Enlai put it best when he was asked how he thought the French Revolution had impacted history. Zhou replied, "It is too soon to say." While his words are true and the largest effects of the revolution have yet to be felt, a theme can be seen in its wake so far. The French Revolution was a grand historical turning point in the standing of social classes and the ways in which they interact with each other. Les aristocrates à la lanterne, ça ira, ça ira, ça ira. Les aristocrates, on les pondra.